Hello, Pastor Bob Nogalski again, trying to finish this book, Our Biblical Right to Keep and Bear Arms. We'll continue on page 13. How many of you know who H. Rap Brown is? He was a 1960s civil rights leader. In the late 90s, H. Rap Brown was arrested and charged with illegal possession of a weapon. Janet Reno dismissed this case specifically because he was a civil rights leader. In Atlanta, Georgia, in the spring of 2000, H. Rap Brown was involved in some other criminal activity. An officer was issued a search warrant and went out to Brown's house to execute the search warrant. The officer went up and knocked on the door. H. Rap Brown opened the door, took his illegal gun, and shot that officer dead. In your own words, William Jefferson Clinton, perhaps you could look into the eyes of the children of that slain police officer and explain to them why a trigger lock did not work. It's not the law-abiding citizen's fault. It's your fault, Mr. Clinton. It's your fault, Miss Reno. It's your fault, Dianne Feinstein. It's your fault, Charles Schumer. It's the fault of those that are taking guns away from the innocent while allowing the guilty to go unpunished when the guilty unlawfully use guns. You got to quit blaming the innocent. Quit blaming us. The worst thing a government can do is take the right to bear arms away from the God-fearing, peace-loving, law-abiding populace. When that happens, we cease to be a governed people, and we then become a ruled people. The strong will rule, and the weak will be forced to submit. Samuel Adams said, "The Constitution shall never be construed to prevent the people of the United States who are peaceable citizens from keeping their own arms." George Washington said, "Firearms stand next in importance to the Constitution itself. They are the American people's liberty, peace, and keystone under independence, to secure peace, security, and happiness. The rifle and pistol are equally indispensable. The very atmosphere of firearms everywhere restrains evil's interference. They deserve a place of honor with all that is good." Thomas Jefferson said, "The strongest reason for the people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is as a last resort to protect themselves against the tyranny in government. No free man or man shall ever be barred the use of arms." George Mason said, "Divine Providence has given to every individual the means of self-defense. To disarm the people is the best and most effective way to enslave them." Patrick Henry said, "The great object is that every man be armed. Everyone who is able may have a gun." Are we at last brought to such a humiliating and debasing degradation that we cannot be trusted with arms for our own self-defense? Alexander Hamilton said, "Liberty requires a people who are properly armed and equipped." Just before the rapture, that's us getting out of the church, and the beginning of the tribulation, the social utopia, global elitists, one-world government pursuers will make an all-out effort to disarm Bible-believing Christians and the rest of the world. They will take the sword from society. They're already attempted to take one sword, and that's the Bible, from our school. Now they're trying to take another sword away from us. Number 4 is entitled, "I believe the Bible gives us the right to keep and bear arms to defend our home." The Bible says, "When a strong man armed keepeth his palace, his goods are in peace. But when a stronger than he shall come upon him and overcome him, he taketh from him and all his armor wherein he trusted, and divided his spoils." Luke 11:21 and 22. If you're not clear on this issue, there is a division in your home. Verse 23 says, "He that is not with me is against me, and he that gathereth not with me scattereth." Verse 17, same chapter says, "A house divided against itself falleth." If I were the devil, I'd separate the husband and wife on this issue. I've taught my wife the use of a firearm. When we got married, her knowledge of firearms was limited. And it's something to think about. Is the 22 the one that takes the red bullet or the yellow bullet, you tell her? "Those aren't bullets, Mary, those are shotgun shells," you say. We've never had an accident in our home because my children were taught from an early age the devastation that a gun can bring. Once you pull the trigger, you can't call the bullet back. But the truth is that more children are killed by seat belts, drowned in bathtubs, struck by lightning, or die while playing on playgrounds in the United States of America than children who are killed by guns. They never give you any statistics that are in their true perspective. The percentage of guns that are used illegally in the United States is listen to me, 0.0017%. The percentage of healthcare professionals that misdiagnose and give wrong medicine or perform the wrong surgical procedure on a patient, which causes that patient to lose their health or lose their life, is 17%. Moral of the story, you are 1,000 times more likely to suffer bodily injury, permanent harm, or death in a doctor's office or an emergency room than you are in a home with a gun. Yet we don't hear a cry. Put a lock on the emergency room door. A 2-week waiting period before you can see the doctor. You say, Brother Sharp, that would be an absurd argument. Absurd. Exactly. The real truth is that healthcare professionals save more lives than they take. The truth is that guns save more lives than they take. For every one gun that is used illegally to take or threaten a life, 11 are used to preserve and protect life. Yet the news media seldom, if ever, reports on the evening news the number of times a gun was used to save a life on the previous day. They tend to promote those stories in which a gun was used to take a life. Didn't Jesus teach that Christians should not take up the sword? This is an argument of the liberals. No. But let me show you what he did teach. He didn't say you should not take up a sword. The word up is not in there. Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane. Judas had just betrayed him. The Roman soldiers with their weaponry were coming for Jesus. There was going to be a confrontation between the government who has swords and Peter who has a sword. Let's see how Jesus resolves this confrontation. In Matthew 26:47, and while he yet spake to Judas, one of the 12 came, and with him a great multitude with swords and staves, from the chief priests and elders of the people. I hear this argument all the time. Let the professionals have the swords. Listen to me. Professionals built the Titanic, but Noah built the ark. The professionals came with their swords. I'm not belittling law enforcement. I'm just saying that the argument doesn't hold water with me. Verses 48 and 49 of Matthew 26 says, Now he that betrayed him gave them a sign, saying, Whosoever I shall kiss, the same is he. Hold him fast. And forthwith came to Jesus and said, Hail, Master, and kissed him. Was it the will of God for Jesus to be betrayed into the hands of these sinners? Yes, it was. Was it the will of God for Jesus to die on the cross? Yes, it was. Was it the will of God for anybody else to die on the cross for the world's sins? No. Verse 50 says, and 51, And Jesus said unto him, Friend, wherefore art thou come? Then came they, and laid hands on Jesus, and took him. And behold, one of them which were with Jesus stretched out his hand, and drew his sword, and struck a servant of the high priest, and smote off his ear. Malchus ducked, and Peter got his ear. So we have two people with swords. One in the offensive manner, going after Jesus, and one in a defensive manner, trying to protect Jesus. And verse 52 says, Then Jesus said unto him, Put up again thy sword into his place. Jesus did not say, Peter, register your sword. He didn't say, surrender your sword to the government. This wasn't the militia or the government's sword that needed to be checked out with their permission. This was Peter's sword, and Jesus told him to put it back in its place. Where was the place for his sword to be? Right on Peter's side. These are the words of Jesus. The second half of verse 52, Now who's speaking to who? For all they that take the sword shall perish with the sword. Notice, he didn't say all they that take up the sword, as these liberals would have you to believe. The word up is not there. Do you know who I think he's talking to? That Roman crowd. Peter, put up again thy sword into his place. Peter, it's God's will for me to die. Keep your sword on your side, you're going to need it. I already told you that it was so. Important that if you have to sell what you have to buy one, do it. How about that? That's from Jesus' words. Never told Peter to give up his sword.